Hi, Katrina.
Hey.
Hi, Lasita. Congratulations on your grandbaby.
Yeah, you saw it. Lovely. She is adorable. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. Long way away from me, but I got to see some pictures.
oh, it's not your daughter who lives there.
My daughter now lives in Vermont.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Moved. Since I came back here, she's moved. Yeah.
God, you can't keep chasing your children all over the world, can you? I know that day will happen for me someday too. I'll call you when it does. Hi, Amy. Hi, Jan. Hi, Liz. Oh my God, I haven't seen your face in a long time, Liz Regan.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Exciting to be hearing what Jeff Arch has to say.
I know. I
about
know.
writing. So looking forward to it.
Me too. Hi, Jennifer. Annette. There's Annette. Hi, Annette.
Hey.
It's good to
Hi,
see you.
how are you guys?
These are
I
our
know I
other
feel like I've
group.
been gone for a while. Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
It's cold here on Kauai this morning. It's our first cold morning.
Oh.
I mean, chilly.
Oh, I
Not
just saw that it's you, Laura. Hi.
Hi, Annette.
What's
I think-
cold on Kauai? What's that temperature?
I don't know. Probably like 64.
Oh.
That's not cold, Laura. That's as cold as that's as warm as my room.
I'm sure.
That's my-
I mean, I
that's
know.
my-
I don't mean
that's
to.
my
I know I'm
house.
with a bunch of freezing people. I don't mean to gloat, but it's chilly for us.
Yeah, we call it parka weather.
Hi, Andrani. Good morning. Hi, Francine. Hi, Brenna. Happy
Hi.
New Year, everybody.
Should
Mhm.
should we be using
Happy
that
New
term
Year.
phrase right now?
Happy New Year. Yes, absolutely. But boy,
Okay.
did we enter the year with a bang.
If Laura says so, I'll do it. You know, it's almost
I'm all
as if
about
we are
happy. You know that.
obsolete. You know, it's like
It's over.
seriously. This is 2021. It just simply flew in like whoosh.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, I should get my phone just to make sure he's not having any trouble getting in. I don't know what I did with my phone. Oh, here it is.
My phone.
Hi, Liz.
Good morning.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hello, how are you?
Oh my God, I'm so good. Are you good?
I'm doing so well, and I'm so grateful to you and all of your classes.
Oh my God, thank you for taking them. Oh boy. So let me see if Jeff is here. There he is.
Morning, afternoon, evening.
Good morning, Jeff. I'm gonna add you to my spotlight so we can chat
Oh,
at
it's
first,
me,
and then
Laura.
I'll take me down. These are my
Thank you.
lovely students from all over the world. I was just
Laura.
complaining it's cold on Kauai, and that made them all laugh.
Laura, you do exist. Now we see you for real.
Who's that? Is
I'm
that
Pete.
Peter?
Yes.
Oh, I can't see you, but I just know you're like, I have most of the men in my Wednesday class. You're one of the few men whose voice I haven't heard yet in my classes.
Oh,
Well,
Hi, Peter. Nice to meet you. And yes, I am real. And Jeff is real. And he's here today. And I'm so excited that you're all here and Jeff is here to chat with everyone. I'm going to mute you all. Let me see.
Och det kastat Mirko. Ja, puss puss. Puss puss puss. Pussy pussy.
No, I'm not sure how to. If everybody could mute each other, I don't know why I can't mute anyone. I am the host. That's new. Huh. Anyway, I'm sure you'll all be good and quiet so Jeff can talk. Hi, Jeff. Jeff is
Hi.
the amazing screenwriter who wrote that movie that we all can relate to, Sleepless in Seattle. Ironically, a hero's journey, and yet Jeff didn't know about the hero's journey when he wrote it, which I love. And I do, it's just a great little fact. And that he ran into a Disney memo, which turned into a book, which turned into a friendship. And so I'm going to let Jeff sort of begin to talk. We're coming up on the 30th anniversary of his movie, which is the top, always consistently in the top 5 movies of all time. So and Jeff is a working screenwriter and he has a wonderful book coming out. I can't wait to read after hearing just a few lines out of it in May 2020 on Amazon. And it's another love story. So Jeff, hi, thank you for joining us.
Hi, look at all you guys. Where is everybody?
Mm.
Who's the furthest from Hawaii?
Greece, I have Greece,
Greece?
New Zealand, Africa. Wendy is in South Africa, Wendy Grant.
Amazing.
Those are the countries. And then I have all over the US, from the East Coast to California, a lot of Californians.
What the hell are you doing listening to me? So Laura says you guys are all writers and you're all, pretty accomplished in your own field. So as far as I know, that means how many are journalists?
Oh, I do have journalists here.
Journalists and fiction writers.
Liza's a journalist.
Okay.
Nancy's a fiction writer. I'm looking through the screen. A lot of memoirists.
Memoirs. This is a good time for memoirs. I guess you know that. I don't think I'm telling anybody anything they don't know, right? This is a great time for memoirs. The main reason is you can get them published and you can get them seen, and you sort of don't really need the traditional publishing model for that. But one thing I've noticed going from conference to conference is that people have a lot to say, and anytime somebody reaches even the age of 50, there's a lot to have a memoir about. We've lived through some really turbulent times where the culture is changing, and then, my God, the news now changes every 10 seconds. It's amazing that I'll click on something, and if it was 4 hours ago, well, forget that. But And memoirs are a great way to connect with ourselves. So if you really kind of can't lie in a memoir, you know, at least you have to tell the truth to yourself and then figure out how to tell it to, you know, I mean, you can push a lie, but I mean, you gotta go in there and be honest. So, and then there's fiction and screenplay and playwriting, and what am I missing? Other nonfiction. So you guys have all had a taste, and you've all been there. So you've all been through heroes' journeys by yourself. And all it means really, I mean, I think the first hero's journey that we all heard growing up was the story of Moses. It fits not only does it fit the step by step, but it's another reason why it lasted so long, because it completely fits that model, and in a big way. He was the reluctant hero in the ordinary world. He was a slave guy, and he was on the run because he murdered somebody. And the call to action, you have a burning bush. That's a call to action. Refusal of the call. I'm not going to go religious on anybody. This is just the story. He said, "Not me. Come on, you've got to mean somebody else. My brother Aaron. You got all these people." Moses apparently had a stutter and no self-confidence, and you know, recently came off a stint as a murderer. So, but the reluctant hero, the refusal of the call, the meeting of the mentor. Well, who is a better mentor than the Almighty? And then what is the next one? Tests allies and enemies. And now he's got to go, and he's got to. So I'm not going to take you through the whole thing, but if you step back and just look at that story beat to beat, that's in our DNA. That going from some place, even if it sucks, it's what's comfortable to us, and then what's here is no longer viable. So no matter how comfortable we are here, we're now the pain of not changing is bigger than the pain of changing. So we change. We go outside the comfort zone. And if anybody ever noticed, if your comfort zone is here, once you go out here, it expands. It doesn't really go back. So, you know, you can expand incrementally your comfort zone, but it has to be done. And I think it all came down to when we were in caves and, you know, we ran out of food. Somebody's got to go out to where, you know, we hear all those sounds at night, you know, we don't know what they are, but they might be something we can eat. So somebody who, you know, kind of doesn't want to, goes out there and comes back with food, with the treasure, with the, you know, with the prize. It is the same thing. But not only do they come home with the prize, the animal that they can all eat, but they come home with something that lasts even longer. And that is the story of how this happened. And it would be, you know, the person who did, you know, just imagine the first guy that dug the pit and put the pointed stakes in the pit and covered it with leaves so the animal would fall in the pit. Now you have a whole new technology on how to catch something. But if you didn't go home and tell any, you know, you could sit on the hillside. You don't have to go chasing shit anymore. It's there. Just kind of sit there and, you know, twist one up and wait for an animal to go in and fall in the pit. But somebody's got to come back and tell that. So not only does it keep the society going, because now we have a new way of catching food, but it elevates the person who did it. And if you're sitting around the campfire with your clan and your group, there's men, children, women, there's all kinds of people. And this, let's just say, you know, the hunters and gatherers, the hunter was a guy. He went out there, he comes back, he's heroic. And the urge that the DNA genetic urge, I'm not talking about anything cultural, for women to select the person who they think can be the best protector, and for men to select the woman who they basically who's there. You know, we're still men. They're gonna pick that hero. And the funny thing is, nobody really picks the storyteller. You know, they pick the hero. So that's how the race continues, but that's also how they get to live, because the stories passed down about the technology and how we do this stuff. So story is the second most important thing to food, when food, fire, and story, because otherwise, somebody comes home with fire and you go, well, how'd you do that? If there's no one there to tell them how to do it, the story of fire. So enough of that, but we're all doing that in our lives. At some point, every single one of you had to say, I'm a writer, right?
Jeff,
Yeah.
I wanted to just, we're in the
Am I
middle
doing
of, it's Laura. We're in the middle
Okay.
of COVID, and let me find me on the screen here. And I heard an Alan Alda interview a while back where he had polio.
You did.
And now I can't find you. Sorry. He had polio, and he survived it because this nurse had gone back and forth to school. She had a cure for it if you caught it early. And there was no internet. So she went telling stories to mothers at schools to try to save their children when they had the early symptoms, and it was burning it out with cloth, right?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and Alan Alda says he could never take any hands on his skin or any massage because it was traumatic to his body, but it also saved his ability to walk. And that was like a story that she went around. There was no internet, there was no Facebook, there was no text. And I story saves lives, sometimes literally, and sometimes it saves our soul. I'm so interested in your story of Sleepless in Seattle for my students. You told me such a beautiful story about how actually creating the movie was a hero's journey. There was a hero's journey inside the movie, but your whole creation of it was a hero's journey. And I think that's the most fascinating story.
Well, the thing is, I wasn't a reluctant hero. As a lot of you guys know, trying to break in the business, there's nothing reluctant about how we want to be writers. But I talked to Laura ahead of time about this, and you guys are at the end of your cycle of classes here or something, and I asked Laura, the one is of the aspects of the journey that you covered, did you cover the aspect of sacrifice? And Laura said no. And what's important about that, now we've left our comfort zone back in Act 1. And no matter what your book, if it's a 700-page novel or a 100-page screenplay, there's still an Act 1. And that's when you leave the ordinary world to go off on your journey into the special world. And then you go through a whole second act where you come up against thing after thing after thing, and every single obstacle in a story is only designed to make the character grow. The only way you can get past these obstacles is to grow past them. And with the archetype thing where, there's the guard at the bridge, and you either have to overpower them or trick them. That's the only way you can get across the bridge. In either case, you have to grow to do that. So I had to look at my own growth and where I was at the time, and going out of my comfort zone was not such the problem there, except for I had to try on a whole bunch of attitudes that I didn't have in the years that I was getting to be a better writer every year, but still not succeeding. And I was succeeding at getting to be a better writer, but if no one's seeing it, no one's reading it, no one's producing it, there was something else going on. At the end of a second act of every story that follows this model, and pretty much any story, the main character is going to come to grips with the one thing they've been trying to avoid the whole time. And that is whatever this truth about themselves is that they've been avoiding, they now have to face, or they're not going to get the thing that they wanted so badly that they started back in Act 1 and went through all this bullshit. And now here they are, and everything has fallen apart. You have your night of the soul, and you come to truth with yourself. And I'm looking, there's no teenagers on this screen. We've all had a moment of truth with ourselves, and you're all here, so you lived through it. So it's not always, in a story, it's not always about, actual physical life and death of the body. It's about the life and death of whatever enterprise the company we said we'd start, or the race we said we'd win, or the romance we'd said we'd be in. At the end of the second act, all that is gone. And if you ever wondered or confronted in your own stories, how somebody gets in the last 20 minutes of a story what they didn't get the first 70, 80 minutes, it's because that last piece didn't come yet. And the only time that last piece comes is when everything else has been stripped away and you see the truth about yourself, the things your best friends know, the things that everybody knows about you that you are just completely missing. Or even if you know what it is, we try all this slick stuff to hide it and to get around it because we don't want to face it. Now you have to face it, or everything you care about is going to be gone. That gives you a certainty. And the reason that people that in stories and in real life you can do in the last little bit what you couldn't do the whole time is that now you have certainty. It absolutely must happen, or there will be a death. And there's a big difference between when something must happen and something should happen, and when something kind of ought to happen, and when somebody maybe that'd be cool if that happened. If you notice, we take care of the musts in our life or our lives fall apart. If something's a must, and just look at what you're doing today. Everything you did today was something you felt you must do, or you would have done something else. Or you're avoiding the thing you think you must do. Either way, that thing you must do is right up in front. So, especially in a love story, actually, it's easiest to describe in a love story, but it happens in everything. The concept of sacrifice, that thing we learn about ourselves, is one of two things, and usually both things that go hand in hand. One, we got some kind of attitude or belief or characteristic that we have to give up. And the other is we have some kind of attitude or characteristic that we have to take on. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't happen, you don't have the things you need to get through the third act and to the end of a story, or to the end of a successful life that you want to have. And love stories, it's great. I mean, look at Harry and Sally. He had to get over his attitude about this. She had to get over her attitude about that. And it didn't work until each one gave up the one thing that was in the way. And the funny thing is, as human beings, we never want to deal with the one thing that's in the way. We want to deal with all the other easy stuff. And the reason is that as human beings, to get the thing we want, we will always do the easiest thing first. And in a story, and like they say, fiction is real life with all the boring stuff taken out. In a story and in life without the boring stuff, you notice, if you want to go get lunch right now after this is over, you're going to do the easiest thing first. If that's not available, you do the next thing. If that's not available, you do the next thing. And that's all the stories are. Whatever that person wanted, they tried something, it didn't work. And as human beings, we're going to try it again. It's not going to work again. So now we eventually have to try something else. That might work a little bit, and then you think we're cool now, and then something else happens. So it is a constant through line of growth. You follow your character's desire line from whatever the thing they wanted was, and the question after every scene has to be, okay, now that has happened, how to proceed from here. And anytime you ask that question of your character, if you know what they want and you know where they are at this point in the story and what forces are up there against them, and you have to know who the hero is, what they want, what they're up against, why they want it, what are the stakes if they don't get it, what are they willing to do, and what are they willing to no longer do. And those are the two big ones. What are you really willing to do?
And Jeff, Jeff, could you tell us what you sacrificed to write the script and to get it produced? You've talked about that a little bit with me, and it was just really inspiring, like what you personally sacrificed. And I think it was a way of thinking.
It was an attitude. It was sort of an attitude where I was very comfortable. It's going to sound counterproductive. Failure was my comfort zone. I was very comfortable with hearing no I was very comfortable with, okay, well, we like this and this is really good, but we have something like it. Or we like this and this is really good, but we don't have anything like it. You know, I was up to here with stories about why something I was doing didn't work. And the switch came when I really realized two things happened at the same time. One is I really realized I've run out of ways to learn from failure. There's just nothing left to be learned. I've had things stolen. Every way that you can not have something happen, those things happen. And I just had this sudden moment of clarity. Well, maybe it's time to learn the lessons of success. And that sort of felt good because there are plenty of them. They're better than the lessons of failure because you're succeeding, but there are plenty of very, very unfortunately bitter lessons that happen once you get in the door. And you guys have gotten in the door where you're going, so you probably know as much about that as I do. But I was very comfortable in telling stories about, well, this didn't happen and that didn't happen, and here's why fucking companies this, and now they say this, and I don't know what the one thing is you never know why anybody really says yes, and you never really know why anybody really says no. You just want to hear yes. I don't care why they said yes. Here's the check and now you're on your way. So one thing I had to do was drop the attitude of, let's face it, a loser. I was losing. And it's pretty scary to think of yourself as a winner. I mean, unless in looking at this, we're the ones that always won the trophy in the track meet, or we always got the part in the school play or whatever it was. I have a feeling we weren't the winners. I have a feeling we knew the winners, but we weren't the winners. And it's really hard to just say the words, I'm a writer, which you've all done, but then to say, I really had to be able to say I'm a hit writer when I hadn't written I'd written scripts that hadn't, succeeded. But I was running a karate school because I learned martial arts because I thought I had some character issues that only after watching The Karate Kid, in all honesty, I thought, well, that's a good way to deal with your character issues. You find a grandmaster and have him teach you. So I went and did that. And I noticed, so I didn't really write for 3 years. And when I came back to it, it was with a different attitude. I had a 2nd or 3rd degree black belt at that point. And my teacher, who was as much of a guru as you can find, told me at the beginning, if I put a black belt on you, you can do anything. So the new attitude was, wait a minute, I'm not doing this as this loser dude who had stories. I'm a fucking black belt now. And that didn't mean any kind of bravado. That meant I knew what I just spent the last 3 years doing. Every day was going out of your comfort zone. Every day was dealing with pain. Every day was dealing with fear, because the fear is that you're going to get kicked in the head. I mean, that's there. You're sparring with people, you're fighting, and I'm not a fighter, but I had to learn that. So realize, dude, you have learned and taken on so many things that the prior you didn't do. You got to be able to do this. So I said, if you go back to this as a black belt with the stamina, the focus, the training, the confidence, and it really was, there's no way you can go through an honest process of getting a black belt in martial arts without confidence. The same way you can't go from not knowing how to play a musical instrument into sitting first chair. You know what you went through. You practice those scales for fucking ever. You watch the other, all the pain of not being where you want to be. That all gangs up on you. And then you start to make decisions. So the one thing I had to sacrifice was my image of myself as someone who only almost wins. And then the thing I had to take on was the quality of the people that win. What do? The people that have what I want. What kind of person would it take to have the things that I want, but still have a life where, people aren't leaving me in droves because of what an asshole I've turned into. So I wanted not just, the Academy Award, I wanted balance. I wanted to be someone who still had friends when I got down off the stage, with my little statue, which I don't have yet, but just wait. So yeah, I had to deal with the honesty of the people that have, what kind of person would it take to get the things that I want? And I would say, okay, what does successful look? It takes the champion. That's first, that's blue ribbon stuff. And then what kind of habits would that person have to have? What kind of things would that person have to believe about themselves, about the world, about their work? And I just decided to just drop all these qualities that I had either come into the world with or had been, laid on me by people that, that made impressions on me. I had to let go of those and take on something that was completely new to me. And that was, what does a successful person do? Because I didn't know. So then I started studying successful people. And there's a million books out there. And there's certain qualities that no matter what it is you succeed at, anything you've ever succeeded at, if you break it down, the architecture of it was exactly the same. Whether it's finding a vaccine or finding a toy for your kid at Christmas when you didn't think, anything you succeeded at, you did the same sequence of things. So small scale and big scale. So I really just, I don't know if we got there when we talked the other day, Laura, but that was pretty much it. I had to let go of the concept of someone who only almost gets there and take on the attitude of someone who's there. So before I sold that school and I rented a little office and I gave myself 1 year to write 3 movies. I gave myself a 3-picture deal. And when people would look, you've all had this. When someone says, "What do you do?" and you say these words, "I'm a writer," you know what's coming next. What have you written? And then if you don't have something that they've heard of, you're screwed, because when they ask that question, they're just inviting you to help them feel superior. And and they'll take anything to be superior, because somehow people are really threatened by writers. So what I would end up saying is, well, I write hit movies. And someone will, have I heard of any of them yet? And I was 35 years old, had to have the guts to say, no, but you will. And they did. It wasn't long after I was saying that to people that, holy shit, this, 2 years later, this guy's got a movie on the screen. I thought he was a karate teacher. So that's pretty much what I had to give up and what I had to take on. I had to give up the concept of myself as someone who only almost wins and who knows the winner and can hang out with the winner, but didn't make that leap into what it really takes to be a winner. And I don't really mean in the competitive patriarchal, I just mean to come home with that prize, no matter what that prize is to you, and take on the mindset of, what are the people that win these things? What do they do? But again, it wasn't just winning this thing. It was, what did Jerry Maguire, they called it the Quan. I didn't just want a successful career where I might walk on an airplane and see somebody reading my book, or a hotel where my movie's on one of those cards, that here's what's playing this, in the hotel this week. It was also, I want to have a family around me that didn't hate me. I wanted to be, I remember talking to my daughter a couple of weeks ago. I just, whatever I did, I wanted to be exemplary at it. But wanting to be exemplary at something, I want to be an exemplary grandfather. I want to be an exemplary father, a writer, a friend, whatever it is. Why be shitty at it? So, and I didn't want to just be okay at it. I wanted to be exemplary. And, you fall short. And that's where your lessons are. Your lessons aren't where, if you successfully make a piece of toast, there's no lesson there. But when you fall short, well, what did I do wrong that I didn't get that piece of toast? It can be as simple as that, or it can be, overthrowing the government. So I don't know if I answered that. I don't know what kind of time thing you're on for questions.
Oh, whoops. Where'd you go? Hold on 1 second. I wanted to ask you another question. Okay. Sorry, I'm not usually doing a split screen like this. You mentioned something that I would love my students to hear from you about the universe, that if you don't take an opportunity, it hands it to someone else. And that was just beautiful. Ruth Stone talked about that, the poet, how poems used to gallop across a field. She was a farmer, and she would feel it coming across the field, and she would drop her hoe. This is true. Run to pen and paper. And if she didn't get there in time, it went on to someone else. And if she got there in time, she wrote it down. And sometimes this is weird. I know. She said she'd have to pull it back and it would come out backwards on the page, and she would have to translate it later. And so I do believe in the muse and the universe, and I'd love for you to talk about that.
Well, two things about that. One is, I think the universe works like, you know, these things where, you matching funds when you make donations. If you put in $10, somebody else puts in $10. I think the universe is that way. If you put in $1, the universe will put in $1. But the universe will not go first. And it wants to know that you mean business. So sometimes you put in $1 and the universe doesn't put in $1. It makes you want to, maybe you have to put in 20 before it puts in its first one. Because I don't think the universe wastes its time with amateurs. And if you really have the, again, this is another thing, attitude that happened with Sleepless. I mean, my character was all three of those people. But the Meg part of my character, the Annie part of my character, was somebody that had a really good life, but something was digging in there that says you're meant for more. And I did have a good life, but someone just kept knocking at my door and saying, dude, you are meant for more. You're doing a great job. You're helping families. I really was doing well, but it was a really small arena. And I was just getting these messages that, I didn't create you for that. And I didn't set this whole thing up so that that's what you did with it. And, it could be arrogant, whatever it is. This is what was going on. And so at that point, I had really kind of shown I'm ready. I mean, I'd written 4 or 5 scripts. They were all better than the last, but they didn't go anywhere. I couldn't stand to not be doing it anymore. Another big factor with Leverage was I had just had a son, and I'd already had a 4-year-old daughter. She was 4 and a half when he was born. And there was my daughter was, there's something about a son, this guy was only a month old. And I just remember having this experience of, this kid's going to look at me one day. He's going to be 15 and we're going to be in some kind of argument, and I'm going to try and have some kind of, not power authority, but some kind of credibility with him. And he was going to say, Dad, you were going to be a writer. And that just killed me. So either I had to construct a life where he never found out that I wanted to be a writer, or I had to be a writer. And that made a big difference. I did a lot of things just because I didn't want to end up, how could I tell my kids about going after their dreams if I didn't go after mine? So I had to set an example. There was that aspect of it. But I also kind of felt I had a destiny, and it's really embarrassing sometimes to say that. Some people don't have food. I'm sitting here with a full stomach saying, I think I have a destiny. I think I'm meant for something. And when I came back and decided I'm going to do 3 scripts, the first one I did was a buddy picture, and it was really good script. Based on an article I read in the Washington Post one day about, a Russian kid that lived in the embassy who took off and went on a joyride. And I loved that story because everybody and every spy in Washington was looking for this kid. And so I wrote a story in like a month. I wrote a script. I thought this had to be hard and, labor over it. And what was they called? Struggling writer and tortured writer. I don't want to be a tortured, struggling writer. I want to be a happy, productive writer. You can do that. So I wrote this thing pretty quick, like in a month and a half, and everybody liked it and might have gotten made, but the Cold War ended while I was writing this story. And there was no market for it. Now, as a writer, I can see, boy, all I had to do was change this to 1962. And there's always a Cold War in 1962. There will never not be a Cold War in 1962, but I wrote it contemporary in 1989. It wasn't going to go anywhere. And again, what's the universe doing here? What the fuck? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do and still didn't get the result I wanted. And that's where you have the quality of the question that you ask yourself. Instead of asking myself, how much more punishment do you need? How many more messages do you need to get that says get out of this, stop doing this. You're driving everybody in your life nuts. You're driving yourself nuts. Just give it up, because how many more examples of And I didn't. I asked a different question. I said, what doesn't have anything to do with current events or history? Because fuck that. You know, the current events, the Russians were our enemies for 50 years. And I pick a month, they're no longer the enemy. And I asked this very simple question: what's timeless? And the answer is love is timeless. And I did have an agent at that point. He was, you know, he was up and coming just like me. He had very few clients and I had no agent, but he was on the way up. And I called him and I said, you know, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, what do you like? And I said, I like love stories. And he said, if you write a good love story, I can sell it. So that night I said, okay, I'm going to come up with a love story. I put everybody to bed and I went down to this room and I said, here I go. I'm going to think of a love story. And that's the night Sleepless happened. And it takes a bit to tell that, but basically I sat there and I looked up through a skylight on a freezing cold January night in this little town in Virginia, and it was filled with stars. I could not believe it's just one of those nights where it looks like the stars are right there. And again, I asked a different question. I made a different statement. I looked up and I sort of felt weird, like if I get an idea, that could be taking it from somebody else. And I had this whole caretaker thing going on, which was bullshit. So then I said, look, for every star in the sky, there's a good idea. There's a good idea for every star in the sky. And when I said that, that made it okay for me to get something without taking it from somebody else, as if that's where my head was at. So suddenly, literally like pulling, this is the most, I never had a night like that since and never had one before that. It really was like magic. This thing dropped into my lap because I did not know the hero's journey. At the time, all I had was Sid Field's book on screenplay writing. And he talked about 6 signposts that you need. You need to know the ending, the beginning, the end of the first act, the end of the second act, and the midpoint. And I said, well, okay, the ending. This came out of frustration because I loved romantic comedies, but I hated the way they were done because they were all so false and inauthentic. Because they always started with 2 people where you see this chemistry, but they end up fighting, you know, for 60 pages or arguing or bickering or not getting along or almost getting along. And it was all, I could see that it was all held up things that weren't very strong. It was all like, let's get through this. I know, and you guys know, in real life, you didn't end up in partnerships with people that you hated. You didn't not argue your way into a relationship. You don't argue your way into love. But they always seem to do that in movies, and I didn't like that. So I'm sitting there thinking of all the typical ways they have to meet cute. It's always spilling coffee. I hope you're all past the spilling coffees that you're writing. Don't do the easy thing like, oh, they spilled coffee. But I thought of all these things, and the night was getting long, and I had these little kids, and I was going to have to get up and deal with them. So I just said, fuck it. What if they don't ever meet? And that, again, a question. It will always be a question that gets you your breakthrough. And that was pretty cool. And I thought, well, what if they don't meet, but they meet on the Empire State Building at Valentine's Day on Sunset? And I just, ooh, that's pretty neat. And then I started to think about how that could happen. And
Unstable internet. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure he'll come back on in a second. I'm sure.
probably talking away.
No, I doubt he's talking away because his screen he'll freeze too. He'll get bumped out and come back in. Get ready for questions. You were, uh-oh.
I should have a different clothing on.
Oh, you froze for a minute.
That was weird because you guys all froze and I was still moving.
Oh, see, that's what everybody said. Everyone said, oh, you're probably still talking. So, Jeff.
I was holding up signs.
I wanted to, well, internet, it's so weird. It's just, we're all stuck in this technology world. I wanted to, someone said just at the juicy part. Ruthie, where did he leave off?
What's the last thing you heard?
Yeah, Ruthie's like, just at the juicy part.
What if they don't ever meet?
It was, what if they don't ever meet? And then I said, well,
Thank you, Liza.
what if
Ask
they
a
don't?
different question.
That's
And
what,
ask a different
Empire
question.
State Building, there you guys, they met in the Empire State Building.
You know what, Jeff, now I'm looking for Jeff so I can spotlight him. Jeff, I really also like how you came to the kid. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
there you are.
This was all about solving story problems. Once I got it, that they're going to meet on they're not going to meet, but they are going to meet on the very last page, but I'm going to convince the audience they're not going to meet at all. And I was kind of out of anger. I was just like, fuck this. I'm gonna torture people for 90 minutes and mess with your heads and make you think, oh my God, this could be one of those romantic comedies where it doesn't work. And so I had to like string this out. But once I knew that page 115 or 120, they are on that building meeting, then everything was working backwards from that. And so every decision I made coming up had to do with, well, will it get me there? You know, I can't go off to the side here if it's going to end up 130 pages to tell the story. So it became not easy, but it became pretty simple. It was just solving problems. Now, the big problem was how to get Tom Hanks across the country. His character was not somebody who's going to get on an airplane. It didn't even matter. Like if he saw the picture, like, well, yeah, maybe I'd go across the country for somebody who looked like Meg Ryan, but not that character. He had no desire line. His only desire was to keep his kids safe and to keep anything worse from happening. He was shrouded in disappointment. If you look at it today, what Tom Hanks does with that part, he starts out with his posture just kind of like he's almost hunched over. And I don't know how this isn't anything Nora or any director can tell him. This is what he brought. He just gradually gets taller as the movie goes on. But we shot the thing completely out of sequence. So he had to keep in his head, where are we? I don't even know if he knew this consciously, but so how do you get the kid across the country? How do you get Tom across the country? And if I didn't have a kid at the time, I wouldn't have known. But then I went, okay, the kid goes. Of course, to do for our kid what we will never do for ourselves. And so it isn't really a love story between Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. It's between the kid and Meg Ryan. He's the one. Hanks is not looking for love. He's not looking for destiny. He's not looking for magic. He already had it, doesn't think he's ever going to get it again. And he just wants to keep his kids safe and quit bothering him with all this stuff. Again, it's always going to come from asking a better question than the one you asked before. And it will always be, anytime you have some like really tough choice. My life has worked out when I look at the whole string of things, because I was able to go, well, what's the third thing here? Because I didn't like this and I didn't like that. There has to be a third thing. So in this case, the third thing was they don't meet. But when they do, I was going to make you guys play Cupid and not have people argue and bicker through a whole story. I want you guys to see there's somebody, these are absolutely perfect for each other, but they don't know it because they haven't met. And instead of a villain or an antagonist, the United States of America being 3,000 miles wide was the villain. So that's how that came about. But I swear, if you look back at your lives and took at any time something made a big break, I'll bet you can trace it back to a question that you asked yourself that was just a higher quality question than what you've been doing up until then.
Thank
But
you.
if I didn't have a kid, I took from real life. If I didn't have a kid, I would not have known how to do that. When you're in the world of not kids, you don't think of stuff like that.
Jeff,
Okay,
thank
so
you. I wanted to open it up for questions. We have a pretty, I'm sure some of my students would love to ask you some questions. Anybody, just unmute yourself, say who you are, your name, and where you're calling in from, and ask Jeff anything you'd like to ask him. As you can hear, he's got so much beautiful wisdom to impart. Speaking of,
Not so sure about that, but thank you.
Can you hear me?
yes. Hi, Flory. This is Flory.
My
Hi,
name is
Flory.
Flory. I'm a first-time caller, but a frequent listener.
Anyhow, I just wanted to say thank you. This is so interesting. And I don't really have a question as much as just wanting to say thank you very much. I have you've given me so much to think about, and a lot of people said in the chat room, now I can't wait to watch the movie again.
Oh, well,
So,
thanks.
thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And also, I can't wait to read your new love story,
Yeah,
which you
don't
tell us something about.
don't be looking for a romantic comedy here. It's a really messy love story. It is only about love. It's about love, betrayal, forgiveness, friendship, fathers and sons, parents, marriage. There's a lot in there, but there still are. Actually, I never really picked. I broke every rule that I have that I teach. There isn't really one main character.
You know,
So-
Jeff, I always say to my students, every rule I tell you, break it well.
That's the thing. If you break it, really break it.
Right.
Break it like pro. But the funny thing is, if you break that one, you sort of almost have to follow the other ones. You know, you can't do break rule, break rule. I broke a rule in love stories that says they have to be together for the whole movie, and we have to fall in love with them and the chemistry that they have and the things that I broke that rule, but I followed all the other ones. There's still a 3-act structure underneath that thing. They still do meet. It's just they meet. He doesn't meet her. They still meet, and there's still a midpoint. There's still an end of the second act. I knew the first night at the end of the second act, she's gonna almost get hit by she's gonna mistake who she sees him with and almost get hit by a car and go home in shame. Go, oh my God, if I can just get my old life back, I'm never, ever, ever, I'm never gonna try anything again. Which has been there. I was the disappointed guy that Tom Hanks was. I was shrouded in disappointment. I was 35 and nothing was happening for me. And now I made this declaration. The one thing I had underneath me was a business and a school that I ran and a good life. I guess I could have gotten that back. I didn't feel it that way. And then, so that's somebody just trying to hold on to everything and keep life from getting worse. And then there's somebody who has like a really good life, but is almost embarrassed to say the word destiny, but thinks she has a destiny and thinks that there's something better out there. And then a little kid that doesn't know yet, that just believes that if I just believe something hard enough, it'll happen. And I didn't know. This is why I would say to everybody, and Laura, if you're doing this, I don't think you are, do not write your theme. I had no idea what the theme of this thing was. And
I always say your story has to take you. You have to let your story take you where it wants to go.
That's your unconscious driving you towards what it wants to work out for itself. That's really all this is. Your unconscious is driving you to work out something it's trying to figure out for itself. John Truby, the great teacher, he always says, write what you need to learn about, but you don't know what you need to learn. But you put these, again, this character comes to you for this reason. This situation comes to you for this reason. And it's all so that you, above ground in a story, you have a character that's going after something tangible in life. And they take the steps to win the race, to rob the bank, to win the boy, to win the girl, to get elected, to run whatever it is. But all that growing that they do on top of the story that we're watching, all the tangible stuff they're doing, underneath they're becoming something. So, and I guess in my journey and what it took to take on all those things of a successful writer with a balanced life, I became a successful writer with a balanced life while I was telling that story. It really integrated. So when the doors close on those three people at the end of the movie, interestingly enough, this was 1990. So this is like right when the current psychology was all about integrating your parts, integrating yourself. And I didn't really know it, but that's exactly what was happening. I took 3 gigantic parts of myself that were scattered and I brought them together. But I didn't say, boy, Jeff, there's a disappointed you and a destiny you and a little kid that wants to believe things. It's not how it works. It's get these people to the goddamn Empire State Building by page 120 or you're screwed. And And if you do, even though everybody told me this is not going to work, you're out of your mind. Nobody is going to buy a love story where the people don't meet. Nobody's going to want to be in it because they want to be in scenes together. No one's going to release it, and no one's going to go see it. Why are you doing this? And I said, I just, what I felt, I just said, you know what, if I do it right, then somebody can do a love story where the people don't meet. You know, it's up to me. So,
Does anybody else have questions for Jeff? Anybody?
I do.
Okay, I don't know who's speaking. Who's speaking?
Genoa and somebody else.
Fatima.
Fatima. Why don't you go ahead,
Lisa.
Fatima?
Fatima, I have to find you.
Sorry.
I have a big group here. Just start speaking, Fatima.
okay. Oh, yeah, there's a hand up. It's really dark where you are.
This was, I don't have a question per se. I just wanted to thank you that how inspiring. And I actually have never.
Yeah, Fatima, you're
I lost her.
yeah, you're not coming through. I'm sorry. Here, let's go to Genoa. Hi, Genoa.
Hi. I just have a very simple question.
Before I finally decided to come.
Fatima, we're only
I'm
getting pieces of what you're saying.
Excited, and I'm going to write 3 books in the next 3 years.
Oh, there you are. We didn't hear what you said, Fatima. Do you want to say it again?
Yes. I wanted to say that I never watched Sleepless in Seattle. And I'm going to do it today. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And that I have been running. I have been not accepting the call. Even with this class, I actually withdrew like 3 times and came back. Poor Robin and poor Elizabeth. And that I accept my destiny. I'm a writer, and I'm going to write 3 books within the next 3 years. I even have the titles.
Okay.
You haven't heard of me yet, but you will soon. Best-selling author.
Listen, I just want to, tweak that one thing, and you're going to write 3 great books in 3 years. Okay, there's a big difference. I mean, it's hard as hell to write a book, to get to that last page, but something happens when you say, I'm writing a blockbuster or I'm writing a great book. When you get to a point where you have to make a decision about how this is, what scene do I do next? If you say, well, what happens in blockbusters? What happens in hit books? What happens in great books? Then all the great things you've ever read, that you've absorbed it, and you'll come up with something. But it's the mindset of, okay, I'm a writer, I'm a professional, I'm going to do this. That's great. Just add one more layer or one more floor to the foundation. It just says, I'm a great writer and I'm going to write a great book. And see what happens. Your book will be better than it is right now.
Oh,
just for coming at it with that attitude.
Thank you, Jeff. Beautiful.
I am a great writer, and I'm going to write 3 great books: Joy Rebellion, Thorn Daughter, and River Woman.
Yay. Yay. Thank you, Fatima.
I have a question.
Okay, let's go to Genoa next. And then Liza, was that Liza?
Thanks for that great example of stepping up, Fatima. That was really beautiful. And I just had a very simple and somewhat selfish question. Can you say more about not having a one lead character?
I wouldn't try it. I think they're actually, the thing that I wrote, normally if you say you're going to do an ensemble story, there's always one person who's the main character. Even a duo like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, they weren't both the hero of the story. It was Paul Newman's movie. It was Butch Cassidy's movie. He's the one that had the drive. He's the one that said, let's, what did Redford keeps saying, you just keep thinking, Butch, that's what you're good at. So if I had to pick who's the main character in the book, you know, I know who it would be. But I sort of presented 6 people equally, and you're going to follow them all the way through this incident that happens from their own points of view. So I wouldn't recommend it. I would never do that again. It really has to be, we as a reader and an audience, we have to identify with one person. We got to project our stuff onto that person. So what that person wants might not be what we want in terms of tangible, but the thing that's lacking in that person, or the need that thing meets, that is something we all have. So it can be self-respect. It can be respect from your community. It can be recognition from your parents. It can be, you know, any of those things, but you can't write a story about a guy who needs recognition from his parents. You could say, well, I'll do a story about a guy who becomes president so he can finish invading a country that his father only half invaded. You know, that's a desire line, and that's going to take him through. But you know, it was if you said it's about a guy who, you know, finished the job his father started, that doesn't give the audience anything. So you have to hook it in. We've all been disappointed. We've all been betrayed. We've all had our hearts. Anybody here has not had your heart broken yet? I mean, come on. And it didn't kill any of us. But the architecture of a broken heart is the same, whether it's you didn't get the grade you wanted at law school, or whether somebody you've been with for 35 years that finds out they're cheating. It doesn't matter. The architecture of a broken heart is the same. And the architecture of pretty much every emotion. So it's the inner thing that we identify with the main character. And I don't really know what Butch wanted. I think he wanted adventure, and he wanted friendship, and he wanted money. You know, he didn't rob banks because he wanted friendship. He had friends because he wanted to rob banks. So if you can, and you don't even really have to know this. I mean, your story has to be about a person who wants this, and then this happens, and they have to do this, and then it leaves the question open of whether they get it or not. And there can be an ensemble of people that sound like they are equal, but there still has to be a person that we hook into. I think in the book, the first thing you see that really is going wrong is a marriage. So I don't necessarily think that it's a person that you're going to be rooting for, but it's a marriage that you're going to be rooting for.
Oh, okay. I thought for a second you were going to say, well, I did it that way so that the reader or the viewer could decide who their hero was.
No, but you're going to have a hard time deciding who to root for. In this whole thing, big surprise, there's a love triangle. And you're really going to have a hard time deciding who to root for, because I had a hard time writing it. You know, I wanted both guys together. So, you know, so that's it. That's it on that. You really should have a main character who has a strong desire that we can all identify with, and hitch our wagon to their journey, knowing that something is going to get completed underneath it that we need, or the story wouldn't interest us. You know, okay. Hidden Figures was about, I don't know if I can't remember now, having seen it years ago, if there was a main character in that ensemble. But we don't all want to be NASA scientists. You know, we don't all want to be what makes it, but recognition, validation, that's something we all want every single day. And so that story told that story, even though it's not about a bunch of people that want validation. It's about a bunch of people you never heard about that helped landing.
Cool. Thank you.
I have a question. Was there someone else in line?
Liza has a question next. Thanks, Genoa.
Hi. So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. First of all, thank you so much. I really did not expect the talk today to also be like a spiritual quest, and that's really what you described. No, I'm completely sincere. It aligns with so much that I'm studying in other areas of my life, and I think a lot of us are, and maybe even more so during the time of pandemic. There's just so much more introspection. So I really thank you for that. I just love this, what you said, sacrificing the image of yourself as someone who almost always wins. And I love that you're talking about replacing that. So I just am curious of the book that's you have coming out, even with 6 people. So I'm just curious, what is the higher level question that you posed or that got you thinking and writing for this book you have coming out?
I can't, and that's a hard, this is different than anything else I've ever written. I got this idea in like 1988 and it just never let go of me. And I sort of was, this was one of those, even if I really kind of don't know exactly, I have to finish this and see it through. And find out later when I'm done what it's about and why I'm doing this. Ultimately, the book is about the possibility of forgiveness and how we can move on. I don't really know what was happening to me at the time because, again, I had this idea in 1988. Since I had the idea, I've raised a family, had a career, raised another family, and this thing was always there. So even though it can kind of sound arrogant, I don't think I'm going to know why I wrote this until I see what happens when it comes out. And if I'm right, there really is important stuff going on there that people need to hear. Once you get it in you that, again, this really sounds, what can I tell you? That you feel like you're being used for a messenger. You just follow that role. So again, this time I broke the rule. I didn't write it with an idea of, I didn't know what was going to happen when I wrote it. I just knew I had these characters and that they're going to be alternating, chapters. So Jeff is a chapter, then Bob is a chapter, then Mary is a chapter. And I had a couple of rules writing it, which is nobody can have a chapter two in a row. I always had to go to somebody else. I didn't know where the thing was leading. Somebody has a stroke on the very first page, and I didn't know if they were going to live or die at the end of the movie, at the end of the story. And it was sort of like I had this image of like basketball players on a bench. And I would finish a chapter and say, okay, who wants a chapter? Who's ready to come in the game? And one of these characters would step up and say, I'm ready. And I would trust that. And then all I had to do was go back and see where were we in this character's progression when we left off. And so, each character had an arc that they were going through. And so this was such an example, of trust, because I had no idea what I was writing. It's not that commercial sounding. But something just compelled me to think of it. Something compelled me to write it. Something compelled me to never let go of it. And, I wrote it as a script, I think in 1990. And it was the first thing I wrote after Sleepless. And people were blown away by the script for this movie. And it was problematic in making it into a movie. And so we tried for a year or two to shop it. And when that didn't work, again, I asked a different question. And instead I said, is this really supposed to be a movie? And then the answer was, no, it's supposed to be a book. And I didn't really come into this to write a book, but when I did that, I started, I said, first of all, what always freaked me out about the idea of writing a book, and that is that you don't know when it's going to end. There's not a structure the way it's the screenplays. The screenplays are very specific. People might think it's limiting, but it's really liberating structure. If you know there's 400 things you can't do and only one thing you can, it's all about what's the best way I can do that one thing. In a book, I was scared of having it run away from me. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, I already have an outline for it because I just wrote this script. So that's how this thing started, and it changed and evolved but if I had to go I have actually one last chance to do galleys. That's what I'm doing today when we get off. It's going to take me about a week. But there's things I could change now, but I can write a line now that goes right next to a line that I might have written in 2000 or 1999 or 2006 or 2010. You won't know it. I just sort of drop into this thing, and I'm being used for a tool, and I don't know why. Either the universe is setting me up to just, here you go, buddy. Boom. See what it's like to take another knock in the chin. Or there's something that's supposed to happen here, and I'm just following through. And this is just cosmic. I'm in California, so I can talk this way. But there's a lot of cosmic shit going on. And
yeah.
And I'm in Kauai, so I can receive it that way.
Those of you in the Midwestern states, this might be hard to swallow, but this shit happens. And it's more worth tapping into it than it is ignoring it or playing it down. You might as well surrender. And
I live in Michigan, and I am happy to receive it too. We need it.
Thank you. It must be freezing there.
That's because Maureen, you are magic.
I'm an indigenous person, and I believe what you're telling me.
Thank you. Well, look, if we, each one of us, if we don't think we're magic by now, what the hell's it going to take? Look at what you've been through already. Look at what you've been through already. Look at the things you're proud of. Look at the things you're not proud of. And what was the lesson from the things you weren't proud of? Because here's the cool thing. If you have a regret about something, a lot of things we can't get back, but if you have a regret about something, it means you've grown, because if you didn't grow, you wouldn't regret it. So I stole from a partner, well, I regret that. If I didn't grow, I would never regret stealing from a partner, which means I could do it again.
Sorry about that.
Can I?
got you.
Go ahead.
Oh, can I hop on with my question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Liza, you have another question?
No, I'm good.
Oh, no,
Thank
it's Kirsten.
Oh, okay, Kirsten, you're next. Go ahead,
Okay,
Dawn.
thanks.
You want me to
I'm
go?
pulled
Wait,
over
should I-
on the side of the road and wanted to ask my
Oh.
question while I have a moment while I'm sitting still.
But let Kirsten
So-
go and I'll go after that. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I wanted to say thank you again, as everyone else. I really loved and was very inspired by the conversation and the talking points about being a winner and a champion and all that you said about that. I feel like I was just very hit with that, and it made me think of a friend who, she's a painter, and every day she writes in her journal meticulous confidence. And I really love that little phrase she came up with for herself, meticulous confidence.
Good one.
Yeah, isn't that good? And so I wanted to ask, you mentioned that there was judgment in and kind of like what are you doing? How could you do that with the plot of having them not meet? So the way in which you were writing the rom-com, like the romantic comedy turn that you used. And I wondered also if there's kind of a judgment or pushback on oh, you're writing a romantic comedy, or oh, you're writing a romantic comedy where they don't even meet the whole time. Do you feel like you used the winner and champion mentality, that was a sacrifice for yourself and a shift in how you thought? Was that also what you used and how you dealt with anyone else's impression of what you were doing? Is that how you handled it, or was
I'm going to rely on my heritage here. I'm a pretty stubborn Russian, and when I get something in my head, I've been that way my whole life. The way you're doing it doesn't work for me. The way you're doing it doesn't work for me. I can't win this game. I'm going to have to make up a different game that I can win. And that's sort of what I did. So by the time you're 35 and people who you grew up with have known you're going to be a writer, and now they're vice president of the bank, or they're wherever you are at 35, if you're successful, whatever your career is, and Jeff's still trying to write, that hurts. It hurts. And I had to let it hurt before I actually the night I made the decision to sell the karate school and start writing again, was a night where I really had to come face to face with all my disappointments and just sit there, instead of distracting from them, sit there and let it hurt. And I sort of purged a lot of disappointment. So you're always going to get judgment. There's people that judge it now. Well, Nora did that. You didn't really, and at night, I know what I did. I can lie in bed with a big smile and know I really did live life according to my terms. And I think that's really what matters. It doesn't mean that you're inflexible with every other thing, but I couldn't sell myself out any longer. So yeah, you're going to have to put up with judgment. And guess what? You want to be successful enough where the New York Times is the one doing the judging, and the Atlantic is doing the judging, and Newsweek and People when they're doing the judging. And you're going to read some stuff about your work and about yourself that you're just not going to like. But along the way, friends you make and the people that love you, you're going to find out a lot. There's a great Madonna quote. Success doesn't really change you, but it sure changes the people around you. And it can. It also changes the people that you have around, because when a typical story, well, now that you're not friends with them anymore, now that you're a big success, it might have been that they were a bunch of deadbeats that held you back. So why do you want deadbeats that hold you back in your life? Yeah, you do take on friends. You're in a new arena. Suddenly, once that door opens and you're in it, you want it to close behind you forever. And you're in this world now of people who things and people. You're never going to please everybody, and you're always going to find the person. I think I said it a while ago, who, giving you an invitation to make them feel superior. So you know what? Have gratitude. No matter what happens, you can always fall back on gratitude and just be, you know what? I'm glad I'm the person that's secure enough in my work that I don't have to make somebody else feel like shit with judgment.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Look, you're going to get beat up. Listen, you're going to get beat up. You have to know this. I was on a panel at the Austin Film Festival a lot of years ago, and Eric Roth ended up on that panel at the last moment. And a year or two before that, he won the Oscar for Forrest Gump. And I'm on this panel with him, and he wasn't an advertiser or anything. Look, if you have the guy that wrote Forrest Gump on your panel at your film festival, you're going to push that. And I said, Eric, what the hell are you doing here? And he'd been fired from a movie 2 days before that. Eric fucking Roth, Mr. Forrest Gump, got fired. It hurts. It will never stop hurting. It's a higher quality of hurt. But no, you're going to get hurt. If you're an artist, you're going to get hurt. You're going to be exposed. If you keep that shell too rigid, let the bad in with the good. But yeah, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. I've had things said about me that I can't. Wow, boy, did you ever? Either you got me wrong or I got me wrong, because that's either not me, and you don't know it, or that is me and I don't know it.
Thank you, Jeff. Donna, did you have a question?
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Donna.
I have.
Donna and I know each other.
I was just going to say that. See, so I have the privilege of knowing Jeff, and I do want to say, which I might never have told him, that in most conversations that we've had, I'm always taking notes, Jeff, because you always are giving, you always ask me the best questions about what I'm writing, and that really help me to think things through. So I have one request. You had a Facebook entry at the Story Summit thing the other day where you said, please stop thinking of, how much time did I spend working on my writing today?
Oh, right.
And said, try to replace it with the word, how much time did I devote to writing today, and the difference. And I thought that might be an interesting thing to share. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is that Jeff's book is amazing. And I'm sure it's changed since I was privileged to read it, but a little bit, but I hope you'll all go out and get it and read it. And I'm very happy to see you on here, Jeff. And
1 second.
Jeff, do you want to read us a little bit out of your book?
I will if I can find it, but just to what I said to Donna, or I put in that post the other day, and I invite you all to join the Story Summit, the Summiteers website on Facebook page. I don't know what it takes. I guess you got to write somebody an email and they say, okay. But there's a really great community growing on that page, really supportive, really smart people. But what I said there was, instead of asking, and who I don't see anymore, had the question about judgment. instead of asking yourself, how much time do you spend writing a day? If you ask, how much time do you devote to your writing a day? Just ask those two questions inside right now, 100% different. Because if you have 5 seconds that day, if it's devotion, it's going to have a different quality. And you're going to feel different. You're not going to feel like I didn't do enough, right? Devotion is devotion. It's sincerity, it's intention, and it shows that what you're doing is a sacred act. And it is a sacred act. Communicating with people that you're never ever going to meet is it's a sacred responsibility, but it's also a sacred act. So it's little stuff like that, like changing a word. How much time do I devote to my writing today? That also means that writing isn't just the time you spend at the keyboard. If it's how you look at life and recognizing that I'm seeing this because I'm a writer. I know you had to. You were the one that in a group of friends, you said something, everybody like turned and you looked at you like, where the hell did you get that? That's what makes us who we are. We're the one who sees like everybody sees a fire hydrant and we see something else. We see a story about, every dog that used that fire hydrant, and then we go home with their owners and we're off tripping off and everybody else is talking about where to get a cheeseburger. That's your life. I hope that's your life because it's really exciting. But yeah, it's the language that was, again, like what I said before, what would a successful person do? What would those people that I'm never going to join that club, where were they? There's no island where they all come from. They had to come out of wherever they were. Some had more advantages than others, but they had to come out of where, and they had to face a blank page. So you just have to know, I'm going to fill this page with greatness. And if it isn't great day, it's the seed of what greatness that I'm going to figure out tomorrow, because no day is wasted. No day writing is wasted. You're going to have days where you just write complete shit. Just enjoy it. Today I'm writing shit, but there's going to be a diamond there somewhere that I might not even see for 6 months. Sometimes it's just the act of sitting there, and when you know it's not working, you just put in with the universe. The universe will give you back your $10. Just not right away, but it will. There's a lot of trust and a lot of surrender involved.
Thank you, Jeff. Maggie has a question. Thank you, Donna.
Thanks, Donna.
You can unspotlight me now. Thank you.
Hello, Jeff. Let's see. Are you hearing me?
Hi.
Okay. Hi, I'm Maggie, and I am coming to you from the Minneapolis area. And my question to you is this: when you are working on a book, do you write with, are you primarily writing with the audience in mind, saying, okay, my reader's going to want to hear that, my reader, or do you write for yourself?
Well, they're the same thing, because I don't think there's like a my audience. I mean, you got to tell a story, whatever story you were given to tell. If you tell that story in the most authentic and brave and industrious way, and not, I mean, you can't be lazy and do the thing that everybody else does. You have to maybe structurally do the thing that everybody else does, but you have to do it in a different way, your way, the way that, you can only write the story that you can write. You can't write the story that anybody else in these little boxes can. And it's the universe talking to you, saying, I need you to. So if you think of yourself as a messenger, anytime somebody ever gave you a to pass on, you didn't want down, did you? You had to get that whole movie 1970 about guys delivering a message. Couldn't have been simple. But the way you write for an audience is this: you have one job as a writer. No matter what it is you're working on, you have one job, and that is to get people to turn the page. And it's harder than ever to do that, because there's 5,000 distractions, and tomorrow there's going to be 10,000 distractions, and the next day there's going to be 20,000. So you have to get people to turn the page, and the way you get people to turn the page, to get them to ask the question, what happens next? So if that doesn't mean there has to be a gigantic event at the bottom of every page, but you have to create a world that they want to stay in long enough to figure out what the hell's going on. So if I do my what happens next, if I know that the way that I write for an audience is just respect them. You know, they're giving me their time. In some cases, they're giving me their money. And, you know, I'm borrowing in some cases, like, you know, thank God I've already been able to do, you enter the culture. And I didn't, you know, you know, really, it's actually extra interesting that you ask that, because that comes down to like asking a better question. In my teens and 20s, just like all of us, I bought into this thing that I want to write movies or make movies so that I can be rich and famous and everybody will think I'm fascinating. I know we've all had that period. We've imagined the interviews and Cannes Movie Festival, and you walk out and all the cameras are, you know, and that wasn't working. So I asked a different question. I swear to God, the night that the Skylight and Sleepless happened, I asked a completely different question. And I asked, how can I get two people in Finland to walk out of a movie theater holding hands? And that's me knowing me, you know, because I do something where like, I pick things by how cool will this be once it's done. I don't always like doing it, but I pick how cool will this be once it's done? How cool would it be to have people walk out of a movie theater in Finland? I don't know why, holding hands. And I somehow, if they're holding hands in Finland, this thing is global and it went everywhere. So how can I do that? I had that image. And once I did that, believe it or not, I was actually asked to go to Finland to open some exhibit, and I was actually in Finland talking to 500 people, and they had that smile, and I was like, holy shit, that's why I picked Finland, because I'm telling you, it's crazy stuff. But that's the question, and that's when I realized it's about the audience. It's about the audience, and respect them and entertain them, and tell a good story straight through. And believe that. And again, without, if you've ever seen Bruce Springsteen live, that guy, I started seeing him, and I think I first saw him in 1972. He was opening for Chicago. And I never saw anybody work harder to entertain the audience. It's all about them. It's about giving. And at the time I thought rock stars were about getting. I'm going to play this song and I'm going to get all the things that rock stars get. Nobody gives like this guy gives, whether you like the music or not. I mean, most people, but so all these factors, like, whoa, Springs, look at how it's about the audience with him. And he gets the cover of Time magazine because he's not doing it for Bruce, he's doing it for them. So interestingly enough, when I got rid of that need to have interviews and covers and fascinating stuff, I just said, how do I get two people to walk out of a movie theater in Finland holding hands? This is 30 years later, and I'm doing this. And I've been interviewed, and I've been on the radio, and all that stuff. It's wonderful, but it came from asking a better question. One that it was not about me, writer for me. It was, what do I have to offer, and how diligent, I don't want to say how hard I work, how diligently I apply to what I do, because I want to get you to turn the page. I want you to want what happens next. And it's from a very basic thing. I want your attention, you know, be honest enough to say that. I want your attention, but I'll get it by entertaining you. And hopefully if there really is a business that's supposed to go through, it's one that'll go through from wherever it came from to you, and it's going to go through me. It's not me. That's for damn sure. When I thought it was going nowhere, when I thought I'm being used for something, so I don't think I would have gotten that idea that night if first of all, I was ready. I knew just enough about screenwriting to handle that story. But I remember telling Laura, I did have a sense of, I'm going to give you this, and if you screw it up, I don't know that I'm going to give you another one. So don't fuck it up. Here's a good idea. Don't fuck it up. That's really the message that I got.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. And Katrina from Tennessee has a question for you. Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you.
Oh, unmute yourself, Katrina.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Katrina, and I'm from the Nashville, Tennessee area. And I'm almost 70 years old, and I'm writing a memoir, which I started just basically to leave my children to let them know who I was if they didn't know who I was after I'm gone. But do you think it's possible that now that I'm getting more confident in myself and what I want to do, still want to do, that it's possible that I can write that and it be given to a bigger audience?
So you don't know her writing, Jeff, but I'm going to tell you something about this woman. She is boldly funny. She's like the Mae West of Texas. And every story she reads, we're on the floor laughing and crying, and also like holding our heart and laughing. So you know, he doesn't know that about you, Katrina. Mm-hmm. And I think if you just say to Jeff, hey, I'm just writing something for my kids, because your story's powerful, strong, and ready to go beyond the family. And I want Jeff to just know that before he answers.
Well, thank you.
You started out by saying you're writing it for your kids and your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say, write it for people write it for them. Write it for somebody you're absolutely bone-chilling afraid to lie to. Okay? You cannot lie. You would never lie to your grandchild or your children. You would never do that. So write it with that attitude. Love funny. So if you're funny, and don't say, how do I be funny here? If you're funny, it's because you see things that other people see, but you see it funny. And man, we need that. We really need that. So just be yourself on paper.
Okay.
You know, it sounds like that's what you're doing. And I'm looking at these notes here, and everybody's digging it. So be yourself on paper and be your best self on paper.
Okay. Thank you.
And it'll find an audience. People will love to laugh.
Thank you. And by the way, if you wanted to break into my bank account, you would know what my favorite movie is. The security question.
Thank you.
You have a lot of fans here.
I won't, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Katrina. I just want to say thank you everyone for showing up. I don't want to take up any more of Jeff's time. And I think most people got their questions answered, and you gave us a lot of gems. I wrote them in the chat room. I'm saving the chat room, and I'm going to send those gems back to you, Jeff, because sometimes you say things. I'm going to make a list for my class and then for you, because you know, you talk to a lot of students all over the world all the time. And I think it would be great for you to have your gems in one place. I don't even know if you hear them, you know, because you're just the same.
I never remember. I'm not going to remember any of this. I never remember.
Yeah, so I'll just send it to you. You can have like Jeff's gems in a Word document. Then you can have someone make a bunch of memes out of them for you. But it's
you really just are way too kind, all of you guys, but thank you.
Thank you.
This was a pleasure. This beats writing. So get to the other side so that you can do this, because it's way more fun than writing is.
Oh, I love that, Jeff. Thank you for your passion in talking with all of us. You are definitely loved.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you everyone for showing up.
Take care.
See you all soon.